We bring you the latest updates from the Pna Newsroom. The Philippines is vying for a seat at the United Nations Security Council as President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. brings the spirit of enduring commitment to the ideals of the international body. The details from Marita Mawahe.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. asked member states of the United Nations to support the candidature of the Philippines to the Security Council for the term 2027 to 2028. The president made a call during the 77th session of the UN General Assembly, saying the Philippines' peace-building efforts make it qualified to be part of the Security Council.
My country's experience in building peace and forging new paths of cooperation can enrich the work of the Security Council, and to this end, I appeal for the valuable support of all UN member states for the Philippines' candidature to the Security Council for the term of 2027 to 2028.
Marcos emphasized the need to reaffirm the UN's commitment to end war, uphold justice, respect human rights, and maintain international peace and security. He also sought an end to the disturbing incidents of racism, especially among Asians, and cited the country's success in achieving lasting peace and sustainable development in the Bangsamoro region through inclusive dialogue. Marcos adds that the country's contribution to reinforcing the predictability and stability of international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, provided an example of how states should resolve disputes, that is, through reason and right.
This commitment is reflected in our solid contributions to the cause of peace and of justice. By shepherding the Manila Declaration of 1982, we helped affirm that differences should only be resolved through peaceful means. By reinforcing the predictability and stability of international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, we provided an example of how states should resolve their differences through reason and through right. These two contributions provide useful guidance for our time, for amidst challenging global tides, an important ballast stabilizes our common vessel. That is, our open, inclusive, and rules-based international order that is governed by international law and informed by the principles of equity and of justice. As I have underscored, the Philippines shall continue to be a friend to all and an enemy of none.
Marcos is the first Philippine president who personally attended the UNGA since the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2019. He was also the first leader of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations who delivered a statement during the high-level general debate attended by more than 150 heads of states and government. For the Pna Newsroom, I am Marita Mawahe.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called for a united effort among nations to address climate change. Despite the Philippines being one of the smallest contributors to carbon dioxide emissions, Marcos said the country remained to be among the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Last June, Marcos said he was seriously considering his invitation to attend the 27th session of the UN Climate Change Conference in Egypt in November this year. In his first State of the Nation address, or SONA, Marcos vowed to increase the Philippines' use of renewable energy sources to help slow down the effects of climate change. A few days before departing for the U.S., Marcos spent his 65th birthday in a tree planting activity in San Mateo, Rizal. The Philippines accounts for less than 1% of the world's emissions and has committed to reducing it further by 70% by the year 2030. At the UNGA, Marcos said the nations should correct injustices by accepting their share of responsibilities.
The effects of climate change are uneven and reflect an historical injustice. Those who are least responsible suffer the most. The Philippines, for example, is a net carbon sink. We absorb more carbon dioxide than we emit. And yet, we are the fourth most vulnerable country to the effects of climate change. This injustice must be corrected, and those who need to do more must act now. We accept our share of responsibility and will continue to do our part to avert this collective disaster. We call on the industrialized countries to immediately fulfill their obligations under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement, to cut their greenhouse gas emissions, provide climate financing and technology transfer for adaptation for the most vulnerable and developing countries, to lead by example. We look forward to concrete outcomes at the Conference of Parties in Egypt later this year.
The Office of the Vice President maintains that the move to relocate its offices from Quezon City to Mandaluyong aims to improve efficiency. In a Facebook post, OVP spokesperson Reynold Monsayak explains that the decision to have a unified and centralized office at the 11th floor of Robinson Cybergate Plaza in Mandaluyong is not for luxury's sake, but to streamline the public services of the OVP. He said previously the OVP had two separate offices at the Quezon City Reception House in New Manila and at Ben-Lor Building on Quezon Avenue.
Nang araw po, may mga nagtanong po sa amin kung kailangan pa ba talaga na lumipat ng opisina ng Office of the Vice President mula sa dati nitong opisina sa Quezon City. Sabi ng iba baka luho lang yan. Ang sagot po ay hindi po ito luho. Ang hindi po alam ng karamihan nung nakaraang administrasyon, dalawa po ang lokasyon ng Office of the Vice President. May opisina po sa Quezon City Reception House sa New Manila. Magandang lugar, magandang lokasyon. Pero marami pong empleyado ng Office of the Vice President ang pumapasok naman sa Ben-Lor Building sa Quezon Avenue. Nung pinuntahan ho namin yung lugar, medyo masikip, siksikan yung ibang empleyado, yung iba ho nagsishare na lang ng lamesa. Kaya naisip po namin na maganda ho siguro sa isang ahensya, lahat ng empleyado, pinuno, opisyal, sama-sama lahat sa ilalim ng iisang bubong. Mas efficient din ho yan dahil hindi na tumatagal ang pag-ikot ng dokumento. Yung mga magpapapirma, hindi na kailangan bumiyahe. So yan po ay hindi luho. Mas sinangad po namin yung efficiency. Ang problema ho yung iba nagkakaroon agad ng konklusyon nang hindi naman kompleto ang kanilang facts. So maraming salamat po.
Overseas Filipino workers under the jurisdiction of the Philippine Overseas Labor Office in Osaka have been accounted for and are safe following the onslaught of Typhoon Nanmadol, according to the Department of Migrant Workers. DMW Secretary Susan Toots Oples said about 13,000 OFWs under POLO-Osaka have been accounted for and that the post is in constant communication with most of the employers and supervising agencies of OFWs in the Kyushu area. Polo Tokyo, with about 22,000 OFW under its jurisdiction, said it has not received any request for assistance. Oples said OFWs needing assistance in Japan could contact the Polo Tokyo Welfare and Polo Osaka hotlines. Meanwhile, Typhoon Nanmadol battered parts of Japan, leaving 2 people dead and 115 others injured. Authorities said the 2 fatalities were found dead in Miyazaki Province, while another went missing in Hiroshima Province. Typhoon Nanmadol was moving north while bringing strong winds, high tides, and potential landslides in the country's largest main island of Honshu. The typhoon hit southwest Japan on Sunday with heavy rain and strong winds, triggering landslides and cutting off electricity to over 100,000 homes on Tuesday. And that is the latest from the Pna Newsroom. Stay tuned for more updates on the biggest stories throughout the day. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.